This is The Clash, where the real world clashes with a true Christian worldview. Join former professional wrestler Chris Whaley, known as the Masked Saint, who is an author, pastor, and teacher that brings his wrestling skills into the squared circle and tackles real-life issues. Along with Jeff Dixon, best-selling author, internationally known teacher, leader, and pastor who is not afraid to tackle the tough issues of the world we live in. Together they form a tag team of wisdom in The Clash.
Hi, and welcome to The Clash, where we take a Christian worldview and allow it to clash into the culture around us. By the time we're done, we hope that we have created a few moments that will educate, entertain, encourage, and all sorts of other stuff for you, our audience. I'm Jeff Dixon, but the real host of this show is sitting next to me under the white hat because he's a good guy. It is the one, the only Chris Whaley. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hey, Jeff. I am doing excellent, and I'm excited about today because we have Marc Mero, who should be in the WWE Hall of Fame, WWE Hall of Fame. And anybody out there listening, you make sure you email and write and tell them that Marc Mero needs to be in the Hall of Fame, because he does. He was really, Jeff, he was an amazing trendsetter in professional wrestling, because that high-flying stuff that you see today, I believe it was Marc that got that started.
Sure.
He was the WWE Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion. He was the WCW World Television Champion. He has wrestled WrestleMania. He has worked against some of the biggest names in the business. He's our guest today to talk about his latest book, Bad to Good, the inspiring story of a wrestling wild man. Marc, it is so great to have you back on The Clash. And by the way, you were our very first interview well over a year and a half ago. And we have stayed on the air, and we're like the #1 show, and everybody
People are
loves
still
us.
watching.
Yeah. And you started all this, man.
Well, thank you guys very much. And thanks for having me back, man. It's great to see you guys again, and excited about everything going on right now. You know, it's just been an amazing journey writing the book Bad to Good. It's BADD, from my character Johnny B. Bad to my life now, traveling all over the country, speaking at schools, churches, and corporations about my faith, my trials, my tribulations, and, you know, overcoming adversity and just making a great life through my faith in Christ. And it's been incredible, and I'm so glad to share that with you guys today.
Well, thank you.
Well,
Jeff,
we're thrilled that you're back, because, you know, we were afraid that everyone watched the first show, but then after you weren't on anymore, they'd quit watching us. And so the fact that we're still here is a good thing. And so you got us started. And so I'm honored you're back again. And I told you just before we started recording, I read the book. I love the book. We're going to keep a lot of our conversation today kind of focused on the book, because we want folks, one, to get the book and read it for themselves, but we also want to give you a chance to kind of take us through the book and the journey of writing the book and some things we find there. And hey, Chris, I was just doing my laundry, and look what I found.
Oh my goodness, look at that. The Clash.
The Clash t-shirt.
I love that.
You know what makes it so special?
Why?
Well, because this is the Clash TV show. This is our logo. This came out of my laundry bucket. That means that these t-shirts are available for everybody to buy. And that means that when you need to do some shopping, that special gift, think about it.
Yep.
You've been invited to a wedding.
Right.
You buy a wedding present for the bride and groom.
Wow.
Matching Clash t-shirts.
How awesome
Every
would that
home
be?
needs that. You know, when they have a baby, what do you want to get the baby?
A onesie.
A onesie, a Clash onesie. You can get that as well.
Right.
If you're looking for that extra special gift for a loved one,
Right.
you can go to the Clash store and get a Clash journal. You can get Clash magnets. You can get Clash widgets and gadgets and keychains. All of that is available. All you have to do is visit the Clash store.
We live in a great day, Jeff.
We do. And perhaps the greatest store out there is the Clash store. So follow the QR code at the bottom of the screen. You can go to the Clash store and get stuff of your very own. It'll make us happy. It'll make the show even better. And you can put on your Clash gear while you watch every single episode of the Clash.
Absolutely.
I just want to kind of start, because again, you always kind of want to start at the beginning. As I read the book, where is it that you began this drive, this desire, I guess, to step into the world of professional wrestling? How did you transition into that?
You know, it was a crazy thing that happened to me. You know, I was always a pretty good athlete. You know, I was an all-star in football, all-star in hockey. I won the New York State Golden Gloves year after year, and then eventually went on to be the USA boxing team in Colorado Springs. And then I got into drugs and alcohol, and 10 years of my life just flew by. And now I'm 30 years old. And I'll never forget it, because I was at my apartment. I had a bunch of friends over at my apartment. We were drinking, just, carousing. And my buddy had the remote control of the television. And he was flipping through the TV channels. And he landed on professional wrestling. I go, whoa, 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 stop it there. Let me see this. As I'm looking at the television, I get this overwhelming feeling. You know, some people call it the aha moment. And I just remember saying to my buddies, I go, hey, guys, I could do that. Now, knowing I was a good athlete, I figured, man, I could do that, And my buddies busted out laughing. I think like the Road Warriors were on or somebody. And they go, look at the size of those guys. They'll pick you up over their head and throw you right out of that ring. I said, no, I'm telling you, I can do that. And my other buddy said, Mark, you're 30 years old. What do you do? Start a pro career now? And I just said the two words that really define my life is I believe. You have no idea the power you give yourself when you believe in you. But when you have God behind you, man, there's nothing that can stop you. Well, anyways, I had to find out where there was a wrestling school. I didn't know how to wrestle. I never did it before. I remember working out at a gym called the Waiting Room in Venice, Florida. And I met some of the guys that were enhancement guys that were on television, Bob Cook, Rick Ryder, Robbie Idol. They were guys I've seen, that I knew that they wrestled and were guys that, kind of got beat up by the superstars. So I asked them, how you do this? And they go, well, you got to go to wrestling school. You got to learn how to wrestle. And they told me a wrestling school that was in Tampa, run by Boris Malenko, where, Chris, you know who Boris Malenko is. And the great Malenko, and his sons were Dean and Joe Malenko, who are very successful professional wrestlers. And I would drive down to his school, which was about, from Venice to Tampa is about hour or so drive down there. And, he didn't have that big payment like some of these schools charge $2,000 or $3,000 to get trained, and they just kind of take your money. Well, he just say, hey, give me $20, whatever you can, And so you give him a few bucks, and he'd teach you how to fall properly and run the ropes and, all the basics, And I was always like wanting to do more and more and more, and he had to slow me down because I just wanted to go to the top rope, or something. And he just slowed me down, but he was really instrumental in me becoming a professional wrestler. And then it came to the time to where we would drive up to Atlanta, Georgia, about a 8 or 9 hour drive from Venice to Atlanta to hopefully get picked on television, by Dusty Rhodes was the booker then. And we would drive there and hopefully get picked on television. Well, my first time I went there, they happened to choose me because, I had a good body. I was in good shape. And I had a wrestle. My first time was against Doom. They chose another guy and me, tag team partners, to wrestle Doom. Now, Doom, Butch Reed and Ron Simmons, world tag team champions, So my first match was against the world tag team champions, And they put me out there, and I just kind of being so green, I messed up the match. I remember feeling horrible about the match. And after the match, they said that Dusty needed to see me. And I thought, man, I'm never coming back here again. I remember walking into his makeshift office at the center stage. And he said, I automatically started apologizing. I go, hey, Dusty, I'm really sorry for that match. And he goes, oh, I don't care about that. He goes, kid, anybody ever tell you, you look like Little Richard? And I thought he was talking about a wrestler. So I said, I never heard of Little Richard. And he goes, you never heard of Womp Baba Loo Baba, Womp Bam Boom? And he started singing, I go, oh, the singer, Little Richard. And he goes, yes. He goes, you look just like him. And I said, man, I never heard that before. He goes, I think I got a gimmick for you. And that's how the character Johnny B. Bad was born. And I was so green, didn't know how to wrestle. So they put me on the road with like Tracy Smothers or Ricky Morton or guys who really knew how to work well, you know? And they would teach me along the way on how to, you know, moves and different things. And then they moved me up to guys like Arn Anderson and some guys like that. And I became better and better. In my first year, I won Rookie of the Year. The next year, I was Pro Wrestling Illustrated, like most improved wrestler. So I was doing really well. And then the character took off, and I really, really enjoyed that character, Johnny B. Bad.
Wow. I know Chris has a question. I want to sneak one more in before he, you know, because he knows what he's talking about. I don't. But as you're, you know, again, thinking back on your career, you know, and of course, and the start I was going to ask you, because I knew that Dusty was the one that kind of created that name for you. But can you remember one defining moment when it just dawned on you that, man, I can do this. I'm good at this. I'm going to take this to another level, because like Chris said, you were, in my mind, one of the first high flyers ever. And was there a moment all of a sudden that just all clicked and you just knew?
Well, you know, before I answer that question, I want to tell you this, that Dusty didn't come up with the name Johnny B. Bad. The name that Dusty gave me that a lot of people don't know the name was Precious. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I got it. And I went home and I just thought about all the singers back in Little Richard's day, you know, and I thought about, you know, the song Johnny Be Good. You know, and I thought, I knew it was going to be a bad guy. So I said, you know, and Dales was doing this B-A-double-D thing with the Freebirds. And I said to Dales, can I use that name Bad, B-A-D-D? He goes, oh, sure, man. So I said to Dusty, I go, Dusty, I know you like that name Precious, but I got another name. I just want to run by you before we put it out there, okay? And he goes, what is it? And I go, what do you think of this name? Johnny B. Bad, B-A-D-D. And he looks up, he goes, I like it. And I thought, Lord, I'm known as Precious for the rest of my life, man.
Well, but Dusty must have liked Precious, because isn't that the title that he used when he made his last WWE stint? Wasn't that the manager that he had with him, Precious?
I believe there was a manager named Precious. I don't know if that was at that time, but at one time there was a blonde girl named Precious that was a manager, but he wanted to call me that, and I was just horrified when I heard that, you know. But now getting back to your question about when did I actually think that I can do this, you know, it took a little bit, because you know, my determination was second to none. I knew I'm going to do this, you know, so whatever it's going to take. But it was like after I started wrestling more and more, I realized that I'm like a fish to water. Like I want to learn more and more and more. And it was at that time, it was really when I started putting like spots together, where let's say I was wrestling Ricky Morton and he'd throw, you know, he'd back me in the ropes and throw me up, tackle, drop down, reverse the hip toss, and I was getting it. And I was like flowing with it, you know, and then I would learn how to do Mexican arm drags really well, you know, and I'd throw them in. And then I realized that I could jump high and I could do drop kicks, and it just became more and more my repertoire, and I just kept practicing new things. And when I was a kid, I would go to this lake in New York called Green Lakes. And back in the day, they used to have diving boards on the lake. So we used to go there and do double flips off and jump and do the moonsault and do all these crazy moves that we never knew. I never knew that someday I'd be doing that in the ring off the ropes. So it was really kind of comical how it all came together.
That's fun.
Yeah. Well, I want to get back to the book, Mark. What inspired you to write this autobiography after your long career in wrestling and motivational speaking? What inspired you to write this?
Well, you know, I was over in England doing an autograph session, and I met a guy named Ben Veal. And Ben Veal's a award-winning writer. He wrote for many of the magazines, and we started keeping in touch. And then I remember being there, and he said to me, "Did you ever think about writing your story?" And I've always wanted to do it, but I never had the person that I could do it with, because it takes a lot of time, Chris, you know, to write, you know, your memoirs, your book and stuff like that. And he said, I want to do it, you know, and we worked together, and we would do like 1 or 2 hour Zoom calls, and he would just, keep the call and then write everything down, and they run it by me, and we go back and forth. And he did such a great job. I mean, he brought my story to life, and I was so proud to work with him. And he's became such a great friend of mine, and I couldn't be more proud of having someone like him. Now he's doing other wrestlers' books right now. Anyone that read my book go, man, I want to have that guy do my book. So he's become very successful in writing, and he's working with Marc, who did the Ayatollah gimmick for WWE for a long time, and he's writing his book right now. But that's how it all started. But it took a whole year to get it together to finally come to print, and then we worked with a company in the UK to publish the book. And so it came out, and it went right to Amazon, became an Amazon bestseller right away. It was amazing how well it did. I was so proud of it, and it's still doing good. So as long as people are enjoying reading it, the 5-star reviews that have been coming in have been fantastic. So it's encouraged other people to purchase the book. And now when I go to autograph signing, people always have the book, and I'd be glad to sign it for them.
Wow, that's great. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, when you write a book, when you sit down with that book, because I know, and we remember even in our first interview, we were talking that you speak to a lot of groups, but when you write a book, that is your chance to really have a one-on-one with your reader. It's just like you're sitting there and having this conversation. So it's a very intimate kind of moment. How did, again, because I enjoyed reading the book. So, how did you kind of capture that? Because every author can't do that.
Well, I think, it's one thing that when I wrote my last book, I remember speaking to Chris about this, and one of the things that I always remember Chris saying is, when you write something or you speak something from your heart, it just comes out where people can relate to it. And I just felt that, I'm going to tell my story, good or bad, and things I never shared with anybody, especially about my drug use and selling drugs and working with the Colombians and just doing things that were so out of my character. And I just wanted to be real with it and just tell the story to see how low I went, to see how far I came back through my faith in Christ and my life changing by dedicating my life to God. And it turned everything around. And now I get so many letters. Every week I get letters from somebody that says, like I got one today from a father that said I saved his daughter's life, 10 years ago. And he says that he still thinks about it all the time, that where would she would be if she didn't see my presentation. Yeah. So things like that are just so, I don't know, I'm just so blessed that I get that, and I'm able to do that and continue to do it. This is my 19th year speaking at schools, churches, and corporations around the world.
That's great. Hey, Marc, the book chronicles your transformation from Johnny B. Bad to, Wild Man, Marc Mero and WCW, and your time in the WWF and beyond. But my question is, what was the most difficult moment from your career to revisit and write about?
Well, Chris, it's the flaws in my life, the mistakes I made. I'm going to just say right here, because I talked about it in my book, was the moment I knew my marriage was over was when we decided to do Playboy, when I allowed my wife to do Playboy. And thinking of that, all the money we were getting from Playboy. And I thought, wow, my thought at that time was, hey, God will forgive me. God will forgive us. And he does forgive us, but there are consequences to sin. And that's what I really wanted people to understand, that God does forgive, but there are consequences to sin. And man, did I pay the consequence to that. And my life spun out of control and went down that rabbit hole again, drugs, alcohol, bad choices, terrible with my money, my financial empire collapsed. Everything went downhill. And then obviously making the comeback in life that has changed everything for me.
When did you know? And of course, you talk about it in the book, but for our listeners, when did you know it was time to be done in the wrestling in the ring? Basically, when did you make that aha moment of I need to step out. I got to change directions. It's time. I've done enough. There's something else.
Well, I think Chris could answer that too. I think after 14 surgeries, it kind of makes it clear that your body can't take this much more,
Sure.
Anybody that's wrestled for a long time has had numerous surgeries. Here's the thing, guys. I was a USA boxer, won Golden Gloves, football player, hockey player, lacrosse players, some of the roughest sports I've ever done. I have never been physically more beat up from professional wrestling where the people say, well, wasn't wrestling fake? I go, wrestling may be fake, but gravity is real.
Yeah. It hurts to stop, right?
Well, I always said, how do you fake a body slam?
Yeah.
How do you fake?
Yeah, how do you fake? Idea the trauma your body takes night after night. And you don't have an off season. And, Chris, I'll give an example. After the Super Bowl, those guys have 4 or 5 months off,
Yeah.
Our Super Bowl is like WrestleMania. And the next night, we're on Monday Night Raw, So it's ongoing. Season never ends in professional wrestling. So your body never really gets the healing and rest it needs.
Yeah.
Mentally and physically.
Right. I tell people, I said it, just about every match was the equivalent of being in a car wreck.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing what you put your body through. Well, let's talk about you. With forewords from Diamond Dallas Page, Lex Luger, contributions from icons like Mick Foley and Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo, how did you decide who to include and what surprised you about their perspective on your story when you got them to participate in your book?
Well, I think first of all, what an honor it was to have, Lex and Dallas write the forwards, and who would ever think that later on that Dallas would be inducting Lex into the WWE Hall of Fame. At that time, we never knew any of that. So that was wonderful. But I think like having Eric say such nice things about me, Eric Bischoff, and because we were on the outs for a long time after I left WCW, and we have since reconciled, did an autograph session together, and just, man, the camaraderie. And Chris, it's like we've done something that many people never did. In other words, when you go to a wrestling convention, you may see guys you didn't even like back then, man, but it's like when you see, you just go, give him a big hug, man, Like there's water under the bridge. Who cares about arguments or things that didn't go the way you may thought they should have gone back in the day, But, man, we all have done something that's pretty incredible. So forgiveness is the greatest feeling in the world.
Mm-hmm. It is. Go ahead.
Marc, as you were going through the book and I was reading the book and again struck by just how honest you were about the struggles and stuff like that. At any point as you're creating this book, did you ever have that moment of like, man, I don't want to tell them this story. I don't want this is something I'd rather not share. Because obviously it's in print, so you did. But I mean, was there a moment or two that even after you were done writing it, you were kind of worried about it? Were you worried about how people would take it, receive it, and maybe think differently about you?
Well, the one thing I didn't want to do is I didn't want to come across as being bitter. I mean, I have to talk about things that happen, and obviously they're from my point of view. Everybody has their own story, and I shared it from my point of view. I didn't want to say bad things about my ex or the things that I went through in my life and how I felt and what it led to. But I had to be real with the book. I had to be real with how I felt or what I perceived happened and my feelings. But I have no animosity towards anybody. You can't live with bitterness, resentment, or unforgiveness in your life because it's you that suffers. And I didn't ever want to suffer, but I didn't want to come across as trying to hurt anybody or make anybody dislike somebody because of what I wanted to tell about my story.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you've described, the book as an underdog tale of triumph over tragedy. What specific challenges from your life do you think is going to resonate most with the readers about facing their own struggles?
Well, I think we all go through struggles in life, and after every storm, the sun will eventually shine, but you got to believe that, man. You got to reinvent yourself. And Chris, I always tell people I'll never retire. I'll just refire. It's always about reinventing yourself. And who'd ever think I'd be an inspirational speaker after being a professional wrestler? I've reinvented myself in many areas, different sports, and then obviously wrestling, and then speaking, and who knows what's next. I know that Dave Martin, our buddy, says the rest of your life will be the best of your life. And I believe that's my case also. So I just want to keep, happiness is a choice. It really is. And people say, yeah, but what about this? Well, we all go through struggles. But I want people to realize that, man, you can change your life, man. And, it starts with just asking God into your life. Without him, I would have never been able to do what I've done. And I encourage anyone that doesn't know the Lord, just close your eyes, man, and just say a prayer and just ask him into your life. I'm telling you, it's not something make-believe or some fairy tale. It's true. It changed me. It changed many, many people that I know. And it just takes a simple prayer of asking him into your life.
Hi, I'm Jeff Dixon, one of the hosts of The Clash, and that's where you're used to seeing me. But I'm also the pastor of the church at 434 in Winter Springs here in Central Florida. And we got something really cool that's happening. God is moving among us as a people. We are a church on the move, and we are a home for folks that are trying to touch and change the world. And we have one of the greatest opportunities before us we've ever had. We got space issues. That's right, we're out of space. And we're in the midst of what we're calling a space program. We're not building a building per se, because that would be, too easy to talk about. What we're doing is we're trying to create space so that we can do the ministry that God has created us to do, and the ministry that he's called us to do here in the Central Florida area. The Clash is one of the things that happens as a result of that ministry, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. We'd love for you to pray for us. We'd love for you to take a look at what we're doing, and we would love, if God leads you, to invite you to contribute financially as well. You're right, I'm asking for money. But hey, if you feel guilty about it, you give. And if you feel really guilty, give more. But the website at the bottom of the screen will take you to our website where you can find out all you want to know about the space program and so much more. And so take the time and visit with us. If you can be a part of that space program, we would love to have you a part of that journey. Look forward to seeing you there and visiting with you online. Man, we are having such a great time talking to Marc Mero, and I hope you guys are enjoying listening to him, but also really do appreciate the fact that this guy really has been at the top of the heap. And when you think of a superstar in wrestling, it's him. If you think of a superstar in life, though, this guy is just doing it and living out his faith. And so I think we've had a blast.
Yep. He's not perfect. He's made a lot of mistakes, but he tells you about it in the book. And he tells you about Jesus too, and that's a great thing. And I hope you enjoyed it, because you're going to get a lot more next week. You hold on and don't tap out.